All right, Monica, Ken, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Whew, okay, it worked. That's nice when when it goes as planned. Well, tonight, this is going to be a great show. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We have Monica Brinkman and Ken Weene with us. Monica has written a bunch of anthologies. She's taken part in magazines and has been on Chicken Soup for the Soul. You can find her work at letstalkitover.info. Is that correct, Monica?
That's correct.
Okay, letstalkitover.info to find all of her books and works on there. And she has a new book upcoming, not out yet, Between the Dots. Is that correct, too?
Yes, I'm working on that now.
Oh, all right. Cool. Okay, well, no rush on that. We'll be excited to have that come out. And just so you guys know, this is going to be a kind of a two-part show. We have Monica and Ken, so it'll feel a little bit rushed, but we're going to do two separate shows with both of them to go a little bit more deeper in their work. So if you like this, stay tuned for the other dates that will be coming down the pipe. I'm going to derail a little bit, or actually not derail. Monica will be reading from her series today, the Chronic Wheel series. Am I getting that right?
Well, actually, yeah, the first book is called The Turn of the Karmic Wheel.
Ah, okay. Karmic, I'm sorry.
Yes, and the second one's called The Wheel's Final Turn.
Oh, okay. And we'll be reading
Now, the thing about them, you can read them separately, and it's fine, but it's best if you get them both.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense to me. Okay. Well, we'll be reading an excerpt from one of those today, am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, so then I will derail now. This is the actual derailing moment, and we'll talk about Ken Weene a little bit. Ken, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, thank goodness. There was that pause there, and my anxiety shot up pretty high. I was like, no, we've lost him already. Cool, so this is Ken Weene. Nice to meet you. He has written endlessly, as he says. The voices won't let him stop. Right now, he's currently focusing on plays and poetry. He has written many books, but I think your most recent book is Coursing, you said, which is poetry?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And then to visit his website, kennethweene.com. That's Weene for the spelling there. Kenneth, Kenneth, Weene. Is there anything else you'd like me to mention, Ken, that I have not mentioned?
Only I wanted to add that Monica's books are really worth reading, folks.
Oh, perfect. Well, I'll add both of their books are worth reading. So check out their websites. Check both of them out for sure. Well, I think from here, Monica, should we dive into some of your pieces today?
Yeah, why not? Okay. I wanted to first state that my books are, I'm known as more of a horror author, but the type of horror that I put in my books is more of a type of Twilight Zone or a Stephen King type of thing.
Oh, okay.
But I don't want this to scare people.
Okay.
Because my main purpose in writing is to open people's minds and take them on these magical adventures that they would never go on before. And it's also a mystery, and there's a bit of paranormal in it. So I think a lot of people would find much in those. So,
wow. Okay.
Now my books, the first one is set in a small rural college town in Missouri. It's like right dead smack in the middle of the state of Missouri. And it's very, very character-driven. What I've had people say to me in the past is that, gosh, they knew people that were just like this, and that could be their neighbor, it could be their, the pastor, it could be whomever. And that's one thing I like. I want people to get a connection and feel an emotion when they read.
Some relatability. That's brilliant.
I know. I'm going on, huh?
No. Please, this is fantastic. So we're going to get an excerpt from the first book then today?
Yeah, let's do the first book.
Okay.
You might as well do them in. Now, I want to tell you, the gentleman that I'm introducing to you, his name is Euclid.
Euclid.
And he lives in Missouri, near the Ozarks. And he's probably around, in his 50s and such. And he's had some things happening, and then we're going to let you in on a little bit of it right now.
Thank you.
Euclid placed his large hands over his ears in an effort to stop the voice and cried out, "Why me? I am no one special. For what reason do you seek me out among all the rest? Just leave me to myself. I don't understand. Please, I don't want to hear no more. He listened, expecting to hear the voice again. Instead, there was silence. And the visions, oh yes, the visions, creeping into his mind when he was in bed, not quite asleep, but not quite awake either. She would come and sit by his side, looking as she had when they were first married, so beautiful and peaceful, dressed in a white flowing gown, ribbons of gold and silver adorning her black hair, not at all as she appeared when the ravishment of cancer took its toll on her fragile body and mind. Gina, his wife, come to comfort old Euclid. How he yearned to feel the touch of her hand upon his face, the warmth and softness of her body against his. He missed her so. She would sit upon the corner of the bed, and he would hear her words in his head, the softness of her voice, and in his mind, projected with a tone of concern. Do not fear, my love. You're a special man. This I have known all my life, my dear Euclid. You have a special mission to accomplish. It is of the utmost importance, my sweet. Listen to the wind, and when it whispers in your ear, heed the signs and follow the urges that will propel you to take action. What seems senseless and irrational holds purpose. The reason is not for you to understand. Euclid, your soul is pure, untainted by the temptations of life, and that is why you must hold no fear of what is happening to you, nor question the actions you take. I'm here by your side. I will always be near to you. Keep your faith dear to you. Follow your heart and your conscience, for they will not lead you astray.
Wow. Man, you have such
that was a little bit.
No, that is such, you have such a poetic,
maybe people
voice.
get a little sense of my writing,
Yeah.
from that.
And we'll pause there.
I'm a bad marketer.
No, it's
I
okay.
can talk about everybody else in the world.
That's why I'm here. If you enjoyed that, you can find this content at letstalkitover.info. Don't worry, this is my job. I get to do some promotion for you. That was beautiful. That was incredibly descriptive.
Well, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, that's why we write, to hear words like that.
It was good.
Thank you.
So this was near the intro of the book. Is this setting the stage for some characters? What was happening more in this point?
Yeah, there are quite a few characters in here, and one of the things that I wanted to show people, there are some characters that you would just consider very evil. You know, if there was good and evil you were looking at. But as I tell the story about them, you're going to get a little bit more understanding of why they turned out the way they did.
Some relatability there, yeah.
Yeah, because, everybody goes through different things in life, and some come out of it with still with a good heart, and others, they've just been so beaten down, they've given up.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. So
I want people to be cheering by the end of the book.
You want people to be what? I'm sorry?
Cheering.
I think they will. Yeah. If that was the intention with that type of writing, I think you're probably gonna get that reaction.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, very neat. So aside from horror, or I should ask, when using horror as your kind of current genre that you're part of, what are you more of like a shock and awe type of writer? Do you like to have things horrifying that it just gets worse and worse? Describe a little bit of how you write horror stories.
Yeah, my horror, I like to be telling a story, and then all of a sudden horror comes out of nowhere and shocks you.
All right. Well,
I don't want you to expect it.
Okay. Curveball out of nowhere. I like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Very neat.
And I try to make horror out of things that maybe people wouldn't think about as being horrific.
Oh, so a little bit.
But I don't want to tell them too much because.
Right. You have to read the book. I mean, that's what it's there for.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's an audio.
Yeah. If I tell the horror parts, they'll be expecting them then.
You're correct. So this book these two books, were they already out, or was this not related to the new book that's coming out? I think I need to clarify that.
They're not related to the new book. The new book, I think I'm going to do more of a fantasy.
Oh, okay. Will it have
It's something that's been in my mind. Ken will tell you that these little characters get in your mind, and they don't leave you alone until you write their story.
Ooh.
That's how you get rid of them.
Yeah, right. Got to put them got to give them some life.
Right.
Wow. Well, we're about halfway. Do you mind if you don't have anything else to say on this topic if we shift over to Ken?
Oh, no. I would love everybody to meet Mr. Kenneth Weene.
Well, thank you very much, Monica.
I'm a big fan of his.
And don't leave. We have a little bit of time to discuss stuff at the end of the show, too. So please stay tuned. Enjoy the rest of the show hanging out with us. And add in anything you want to. So you're not going anywhere. Just hang out.
All right. Sounds good, Kevin.
All right.
Thank you for having me, by the way.
Yeah. Well, you can say thanks again at the end. You're not going anywhere yet. We definitely got you for 15 more minutes. You're locked in. So, Ken, what were you going to be bringing on the table tonight?
Well, what am I going to bring to the table tonight? I guess I'll share a little bit of my poetry. You know, I write all kinds of stuff. I write novels, short stories, essays, actually involved in some political stuff now. And I write poetry. And one of my most recent books, which is brought out by Cyberwit, is called Coursing. And I thought I'd share a couple of the poems from that, and then maybe we can talk a little bit.
Yeah, please do. Coursing. And you can find this on KennethWeene.com, right?
KennethWeene.com.
KennethWeene.com, okay.
The first poem in the book, the book is divided into two parts, and the first is called Reliquary, and it's reflections on my childhood. And the first poem in the book is called Boxes in the Attic. Boxes in the attic filled with photographs, people I had never seen. My parents happy in bathing costumes on Boardwalk Revere Beach, father smiling, and his parents, whom I never knew despite monthly visits, to be kissed with grandmother's old age musk. No pictures of Benjamin, father's brother, who died young and was never mentioned. Memory of the dead is a luxury we were taught to scorn. Had he lived, perhaps the family rage would have burned less hot. If there had been time for tears, perhaps father's cries would have extinguished the flames. Hiding from mother's protection, I played solitaire with fading photographs. Who went with whom? Where did they go? I never asked. When they were dead, the last casket mourned, I asked cousins who recalled a different grandmother, one who gave love with food, strudel, gefilte fish, and sang bubbly Yiddish songs. In the boxes of photographs, uncles and aunts, graduations and cousins, but no Benjamin. There were no photographs of tears, only smiles worn like new clothes and stiff Sabbath shoes, and unkissed mezuzah. And I wanted to balance that one with one from the second part of the book, which is a much happier part. It's called Listen to the Bullfrog Sing.
I'm crying.
And it's about life now. And this one was written at a religious writing creativity retreat in Pennsylvania called Pendle Hill. And it's called the Pendle Hill Grace. Someone chipped away for me with bits of bark and shards of tree that I might walk this way with ease and listen to the bullfrogs sing. The sun is pulling through green leaves to bid me do as I well please, but pay respect to all of these, for God is in the smallest things. The lily pond, the honeybee, a child's laugh, an old man's wheeze, the robin's breast, a soft, cool breeze. God freely gives them all to me. And that's a couple examples of my poetry.
Wow, that is a large breadth of emotion there. I love that. Wow.
Thank you.
Can you give us a little bit more context on the first piece? I wanted to elaborate there and elaborate some more on the second, too.
Okay, sure. The first piece is based on reality. I grew up in a very dysfunctional family, which is why I ended up becoming a shrink, actually. And so I often would take refuge up in the attic of our home, and there was a huge room, just a storage room, filled with different things, but piles and piles of these old photographs of, particularly my father's family, fascinated me because I really never got to know my grandparents, even though I saw them. My mother, and I have a book called Memoirs from the Asylum. It's one of my novels. And in it, my mother plays a prominent role as a character. And she was quite crazy, and she had her own definitions of kosher and treif. Oh. And my grandparents, who kept the kosher home, were considered treif by my mother, which gives you some idea of the craziness.
Oh, boy.
Anyway, and my one thing I did learn was my father's younger brother. He was one of the youngest of a large family, but his younger brother, Benjamin, died probably of influenza. And he was never discussed. Nobody ever mentioned Benjamin. And there were no photographs of Benjamin, even though there were photographs of my father as a young child and his other siblings as young children.
Wow.
So obviously the photographs of Benjamin had been removed. And this struck me as part of why my father, who was crazy in his own ways, a rageaholic, couldn't handle emotion because he never actually was able to come to terms with the loss. And that was exacerbated, just for those of you who are psychoanalytically minded, it was exacerbated because in that family, the younger sibs were responsible, the older sib was responsible for the next younger. And so Benjamin, in effect, died on my father's watch, although my father was only a little kid at the time. So the other poem, I've had, because of the family dysfunction, although I was brought up to be nominally Jewish, and I was bar mitzvah, which is my famous answer. My wife's grandparents wanted us to be married in a Jewish ceremony. I, at that time, was going to Quaker meetings. And so the rabbi that they had found would marry us if I was Jewish. So he says to me, Kenneth, are you Jewish? And my famous answer was, well, I was bar mitzvah. Does that count? And he accepted it. And so he was willing to perform the service. But in reality, I've struggled with religion for years. It is one of my favorite intellectual topics, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I have lots of stories to tell about it. But one of the things was that later on in life, now married, my wife and I, we were both kind of going to some Unitarian, some Society of Friends, some just not going to anything services. And I heard about this wonderful place, Pendle Hill, with all of its fabulous emphasis on creativity and sharing and the Quaker ethos. And so I went there. We went there together as a couple. And that poem was written as I walked the grounds. It was a wonderfully inspiring place for me.
Oh, I love it. My favorite line
sounds
from
beautiful.
That yeah, I agree. I was the two lines that stuck out when you were reading your pieces were grandmother's old age musk, or it was Husker musk. I don't think I caught that.
Musk.
I love that. I wish I could go in everyone's headspace and see what they're thinking about and what they're smelling when that phrase is said. And the other one was old man's wheeze. I think that was a beautiful description. God is even an old man's wheeze. Beautiful pieces. Monica, you as well.
Well, thank you.
Headed towards the end of our show, and one thing that we forgot to mention was how did you guys meet? I think this is a great story and a good spot for you guys to get some advertising into.
Okay.
Yeah. Monica and I co-host a podcast, which you can find on YouTube. Monica, tell the people what our show is.
Please.
It's called Let's Talk It Over. And it's basically, as it sounds, we have people on the show for interviews, and they can be, they can be artists, they can be authors, they can be personalities, politicians, and every walk of life.
Cool.
Police officers, because we like to chat with people about things. We think that communication is very, very important, and understanding each other is also.
Yes. Oh, man.
And a lot of times we'll have our own shows, Can be where we chat about something.
Yeah. By the way, Monica, you mentioned personalities, and one we did not too long ago was with a woman who suffered from dissociative disorder. She had multiple personalities.
Yes.
So I guess we could count her as more than one show.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Monica and I actually we've been doing some kind of podcast for years. Originally, we met, not in person. We've never actually met in person. Well, it feels like we do know each other that well. But we met because we both have the same wonderful little publisher in Maine. They published, I think 7 of my books, and 2 or 4 of yours, Monica?
I think they've only done 2.
Just the 2 Karma books. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, and they have a bunch of mine. And anyway, it's called All Things That Matter Press. And they have, if you folks, if you're interested in reading books that have values and that explore issues and thought, mostly fiction. But if you like a book that gets you thinking, I recommend this nice little house. It's called All Things That Matter Press. Of course, they have their own website. And if you do communicate with them, tell them that Monica and I sent you.
Oh, all right. Well, man.
And they encourage new authors also.
Oh, well, this is a perfect segue for the last few minutes of the show. We have about 4 minutes left. So in our best ability, and again, Ken, we talked about this a little bit before, you can say we can talk about this more in depth at a different show because you guys will be coming back for each your own respective shows. But for both of you, what advice would you give new writers, people stepping into the field, younger, any age of life, but just new writers in general? What would you say to them?
Well, I think that the first thing I would say is if you think you're going to make a lot of money, you'd probably be better off working at McDonald's or Burger King or Subway or something like that. The second thing I would say to you is please don't look to your best friends and your family to be your editors.
Yes.
They love you too much, and they really are so used to hearing you talk, and in my case, perhaps blither on, that it's very hard for them to give you good editorial feedback. So look for a writing group. One place you can find some great writing groups is on meetup.com. A lot of communities, they have writing groups. And go to a group where you're going to get real feedback and where you're going to be expected to give real feedback. And I will tell you, you'll learn more from the feedback you give than the feedback you get.
Beautiful. Monica, what about you?
Well, I tell people to, first of all, not be afraid. If someone wants to write, there has to be reason behind that. That there's probably a story going on in their mind. And they should just start writing. The more you write, the better you get at writing.
Got to practice that stuff.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm getting back to that now because, I go through these phases, writing, art,
right.
back to writing.
And they're all related and they're all helping each other get better. So just feel if you're doing writing and you need to take a break, do something else because you can always come back to it later. But you got to be doing it if you're going to be a writer.
Yeah.
Well,
and I try new things. I tried some new things in my books, actually, that people said, oh, you can't do this.
Hey.
People won't like it. Well, they actually loved it.
Yeah,
so.
yes, you can. Don't be afraid. I like that piece of advice. You can do that. Trial it out. It's your book.
That's right.
Well, Monica, Ken, thank you so much for being on the show. I will give you guys a call after this. We'll do some more chatting, but I hope you had as good of a time as I had. Thank you again. You're writing, both of you, excellent stuff. Find their stuff at letstalkitover.com and kennethweene.com as well. Or was it info, Ken? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's good. No, kennethweene.com.
Perfect. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, hope you guys have a good night, everyone. This is FM 90.1 KZFR Chico, listener-supported community radio for the Sacramento Valley, the foothills, and beyond. And we're going to read out the underwriting. Up next is Radio Radix with Brenton.